to How Would You Write It, the podcast where we dive into the minds of storytellers to discover what it really takes to create the stories that we love. I'm Nanea Taylor, and I sit with screenwriters, novelists, directors, actors, and producers to explore the twists and turns of their creative processes. From reimagining iconic scenes to crafting characters that make us that feel like real people, we're breaking down the art of storytelling from every angle. I'm excited to introduce Jeremiah Lewis, who is a writer, producer who grew up in the backwoods of Tidewater, Virginia. He writes features and TV that intersect horror with sci-fi, often leveraging his computer science background to meld technology and horror and their collision with relevant social issues. His Killer Shorts finalist Gothic horror script, The Rickety Man, was made into an award-winning film that debuted at the Screenfest 2021 and won the Best Picture at Horror Origins, among other awards. Jeremiah lives in New England with his wife and his two dogs. Welcome, Jeremiah.
Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here.
And you can call me Tay, because everyone calls me Tay, or Taylor, whichever one you want to do.
Tay's great.
I want to dive into this new, I call it a horror action script. You tell me if that's you have different genres, you have a different genre for that, but I'm calling it a horror action film feature script called Alpha Lobo. Now, the first question I have for you for Alpha Lobo is the title. Tell me how you came up with that title.
Well, so just a little bit of background on what this movie is about, what the script is about. It's basically a female assassin who gets sent on a mission. She gets bit by a werewolf and she becomes a werewolf herself. And then the agency that she works for, it turns out they set her up to become basically a kind of an experiment, essentially, for a new werewolf assassin program. But she doesn't want to play ball. And so this agency kidnaps her son in retaliation. And so she has to go after them. And so all kinds of crazy things ensue. And yeah, it's I think it's accurate to say that that's an action horror. It's I don't know, it's in that realm. It's probably more action than horror. It started out as like to be kind of a blend of both, but it turned into almost a pure action by the end of it. So
I mean, to me, it was heart pacing action from the beginning to the end, and you do have some elements of, I mean, it's scary too. Okay, so you do have the horror in there, but you also have these moments of levity of pulling at your heartstrings. And I definitely want to delve into how you were able to balance all of that. But I want to first talk about the concept. Like, how did you get that idea for this feature?
Well, and just I'm going to tack on the answer to that with the answer to your other question, which was how did I come up with the title? Weirdly enough, the title just came to me. I had no idea what it meant. It was just I had no idea what it meant. I was just like, what is Alpha Lobo? But I knew Lobo was Spanish for wolf. And I thought Alpha Lobo, that's kind of something kind of cool there. It feels neat, almost super like a super spy type of thing. So I was like, well, let me just kind of play around with what this could be and then see where it goes. So I just started noodling with ideas. I wrote down female spy, sent on a mission. And I basically just had a very, very simple concept at that point. I didn't know it was necessarily about a werewolf, but I had kind of an inkling because it was like, wolf, there's something interesting there. What if I combined a spy thriller with a werewolf horror story? And so that's kind of how it developed. And then I basically had that idea for about a year and I just sat on it. I didn't do anything with it because I didn't really know what to do with it. I was just like, it's cool, but I don't really know what the story is. And probably about a year after I got that idea, I was just like, I was struck by like, I saw the whole picture in my mind. I saw what the stakes were. I saw what the various action set pieces were. I saw the main character really clearly, and I saw the bad guys, and I was like, I think that there's something here. And so I just started noodling with it. I wrote an outline, and then I started writing it, and yeah, it just kind of came together really fast.
Oh my,
So
so my next question is, how long did it take you to write it? And how many drafts did you go through?
okay, so the very first time that I wrote out what the idea was about 2 years ago now, actually. But I didn't start writing it until a year later. So I started writing it really about last November. And yeah, and I wrote it in, I don't know, a month and a half ish. And then it went through a couple of rounds of notes. So I got, I think this is like draft three that you read.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Draft three was awesome. So if you have any more that you need to like trim it down on, I will be upset with you. But I mean, I get it. I know the industry and how they wanted to, trim some things down, but
Yeah.
I loved everything about this script. I was so excited. One, that you had and in the horror realm, you're seeing some changes there where you're not seeing so much male led
Mhm.
horror features. Um, but to define this script with a female-led protagonist, a single mom at that. What did you use to reach back in your experience or your past experience to write her? To write to that being a single mom, to being um uh that overall protector that came out even more. To me, it seems like it amped up when she got bit and turned into a werewolf. So what influenced you to and the protagonist's name is Kate. So what influenced you? Where did you pull from to write her?
I think I saw her initially as a very hard-nosed, very focused killer
Hmm.
who just happens to be a mother.
Hmm.
And I wanted her arc to kind of be this person who slowly learns that she doesn't have to give up who she is to be a good mother and to, actually do the things that a mother would do. And that evolved a little bit as I wrote it, but that was kind of the impetus for it. And I was interested in the idea of, well, what is motherhood? What does it mean to be a mother? What does it mean to be a parent? What does it mean to be uh, um, a professional woman in a world of killers? And you could say that it's a metaphor for any kind of like job that a woman has to go into where it's primarily male dominated, and there's a lot of obstacles to sort of overcome in your industry, whatever it is. In this case it's just she's an assassin, so she has to overcome all those typical obstacles that you would expect in an assassin movie, but she has to do it while juggling being a mom. And I don't know, I thought there was something interesting there. I didn't I you know I My parents are divorced, but I don't really necessarily have that to fall back on. But I do have just the general sense of uh seeing parents, and especially single parents, and the struggles that they go through as they're trying to raise their kids in a world that is not really sympathetic or helpful to those people. I mean, it's you're sort of out there on your own, and you kind of have to figure it out, and you gotta marshal your resources as best you can, even if you don't have it all together. And a lot of times you don't have it all together, but you do it anyway, and you show up every day. And I think that I wanted to sort of show her journey going from this. I mean, she truly is kind of heartless at the beginning. She's very focused, and she is a good
Cold-blooded.
she's great at her job,
Hmm.
but she's kind of not great at being a mom.
Yeah.
And after she gets bitten, she becomes very protective of making sure that her kid's okay. And so when this agency that's double crossed her, when they go after her kid, she gets really serious about being the parent, the mom.
Hmm.
But at the same time, she doesn't lose her focus. She doesn't lose her ability to do the job that she knows how to do
She's
really well,
taking
which
them
is
out.
yes,
She's
exactly.
taking them
Um, so yeah, I was excited to explore what that meant, and I know that it's treading on potentially dangerous ground because I'm not a woman, I'm not a mom, I'm
No,
not
you
even a
did a good
parent.
job. You did a good job.
Thank you.
Was it always your intention to write this for female protagonists?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Never, it never, like, the aside from the title, the first image that I had was of this woman and just her steel-eyed focus on the job. I just loved that image. I loved the idea that this woman is out there. I mean, she's killing, yeah, she's an assassin, but she kills bad people. So it's, you
Yeah.
kind of like you
Yeah.
can get behind her. She's sympathetic, even though she does do sort of bad things. But I think I was just really enthralled by this strong, independent, fierce killer of a woman
Mhm.
who is, she kind of has to unlock the softer side in a way. She has to unlock the side of that nurturing nature that I know that she has. And I think, I personally believe we all have that. We all have a nature inside of us that says, if there's someone in need, if there's a child or someone who's sick or hurting or whatever, we all have I think deep down we all have an intrinsic a nature to want to care for them, to take care of them, and I think it just needs to be unlocked.
So I'm gonna ask this question because I always wonder about other writers with this. So the side characters, the villains, which one was your favorite writing?
That's a good question. I think I really liked writing Father. So Father, there's a couple of different villains in this.
You
Father
got a couple.
is Yeah, Father is sort of an interesting character because I think he's more complex. He starts out as her mentor,
Hmm.
but you realize a little bit down the road, and this is a bit of a spoiler, but that's okay. It's meant to be spoiled because I want you to read it.
Hmm.
Uh, Father becomes kind of he's a cutthroat capitalist, right?
Yes.
So he sees the bottom line, and at the end of the day, he betrays the woman that he trained in service to what he believes is a larger purpose, a larger goal, and he views it as a noble one, right? He thinks that this werewolf assassin program is for the good of mankind, right? I
Hmm.
mean, he's at least trying to convince himself of that.
Hmm.
But he betrays her, and I think there's something really interesting about writing a complex villain, someone who has ostensibly noble purposes for doing what they're doing. I think that the best villains always have something that you can sort of latch onto and say, yeah, I understand that thinking, even if I don't agree with it, you
Yeah.
know? Um, and the other villains, especially like Simon Weiss, he's I mean, he's just a dick.
He's just
Uh
great. Yeah.
and he's power hungry, and he's interested in the results of this program.
Hmm.
He doesn't really care about the collateral. He doesn't care about human life. So much less complex. I mean, he's got some good lines, but
Straightforward of what he wants, and all he wants is power. Yeah.
he wants power, and he wants to he wants to sort of come out on top at the end of the day, and he's going to do whatever he has to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So less complex, not as interesting, but I tried to write him to be a fun character. I think that he chews a lot of scenery. So
Yeah, yeah, but I loved all the characters here, but I will also say that my favorite other side character was Father. I loved how you wrote him. I love that it was in, like you stated, complex. He's a complex character. Um, I love that the dynamics between them. I'm not trying to give away the whole story because I want people to read it
yeah,
too, because I actually truly love this script. I can't wait to see it, and I can't wait to see it on screen. And I'm praying that that we get it on screen because this
uh,
is so
you and
good.
me both.
It's so good. Um, Now going back to balancing, how you balance the action, how you balance
Hmm.
the horror, and then you, like I said, you had the moments of pulling at your heartstrings. How, as a writer, did you approach that?
Well, I think that whatever genre you write in, it doesn't matter if it's horror, if it's drama, or even comedy for that matter. I think that character is the most important aspect The old saying is that we don't watch movies for the stories, we watch them for the characters, and I believe that that's true. So for me, it all comes down to I just do gut checks every scene, every beat. I ask myself, is this accomplishing a multitude of things? A, is it entertaining?
Hmm.
B, is it giving us something new or interesting about the character that we don't know? Or is it allowing us to see a thematic aspect to the story that maybe we haven't been able, or expand on something? So I'm always asking that question, and I literally I will do that in every scene. I try and make sure that every scene has something happening, something that's pushing not just the story, but also the characters and all of the other elements forward, so that when you're reading it, and I hope that it's invisible, but when you're reading it, you're going to get the sense of a holistic engagement on all fronts. So, and there are moments for drama, there's moments for horror and scary stuff, there's moments for levity. I mean, this script has some comedic moments as well.
Yes.
And I think that, it's really hard to sort of say, I don't think that there's an algorithm for it. And this is why I think that it's the AI question is really interesting. But
Hmm.
when you're writing something like this, you almost have to be instinctual about it. You have to feel your way through it, and you have to. That's why I said a gut check. You do a gut check, and you just have to sort of know, hey, this moment needs something in this direction. It needs more horror, or this is the moment for getting into the emotional stuff. This is the moment where we need to have a quieter moment. This is the moment where it's supposed to be big, and you just have to find what that what that looks like, and it's going to be different for every script, and it's going to be different for every writer, because some writers are going to excel at sort of doing the big bombastic stuff,
Hmm.
and there's some movies or some stories that don't necessarily need a whole lot of the quieter moments. But I do think that every movie, every story needs a good up and down. Needs the softer stuff, needs the louder stuff, needs the fast paced stuff, needs to slow it down a little bit. So it just comes down to your gut instinct and doing a lot of sort of reading and rereading, and then writing and rewriting, because I said this is a third draft, but I do a lot of rewrites as I'm going, and I know that some people are like, you shouldn't do that. Whatever, you got to do your own process.
Yeah,
uh,
definitely.
but yeah, I genuinely, I feel like every writer has to figure it out for themselves. There's not a silver bullet,
Mhm.
golden secret that if you unlock it, it's going to make every script better. It just comes down to, yeah, just feeling your way through it. And I tried to feel my way through this one, because it was very much like I felt like as I was writing it, oh man, I can feel what she's feeling in this moment, or I can understand why he's making this decision, right? Or why this moment has to happen. I know why I have to do this thing. And yeah, so I don't know, I followed my heart on this one a lot.
And I feel that for me, when I'm feeling the characters, when I'm feeling that plot, when that pacing, and I'm like in the moment with the character, I think, oh, this is good. Like, this is good. Like, I don't know if that's other writers. So is that how you felt? Like, okay, this is at least that you are putting your heart and your soul and your feelings into that character, into the story. Is that how you felt when you were writing it?
Definitely, absolutely. And you know what? That's not to say that you're going to always be right, which is
Yeah,
an interesting
that's true.
thing.
Yeah.
Your feelings, you can be right about your feelings, but not nail the scene.
That's true. That's true. And
And
that's why
and this is
feedback is so important.
exactly, this is why
That's why
it's so
feedback is
great
so
to get
important.
external feedback, get readers that you trust, and people who are great at giving notes to
Mhm.
read, and give you their objective opinion about something. And they're gonna spot stuff that you missed. They're going to pick up on things that you didn't realize were there. They're going to ask questions that are going to open up new pathways. And I think that, yeah, I mean, a good script is not going to be perfect, because it's going to push readers to offer their own ideas and their own suggestions and their own feedback to help make it better. So I actually really think that if you have a good script, it can always be made better, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah, which I feel like a lot of people get offended if you um don't love the script right away. You know, they when giving feedback, you don't love it right away. Like you're not getting, oh, this is all wonderful. And when I
Mm-hmm.
give feedback, I go on feelings, and you know that I go on feelings of how it made me feel. Like, how did the scene make me feel? How did the dialogue? How did the character make me feel? I'm not into the weeds of is your format right and all that. I'm
Right.
more into if I was in the audience watching this, how am I feeling with this? How and that's
I
my
love that.
feedback. But
I love that approach because it really does put you right in the oh, that's ultimately where this should end up, right?
mhm,
It should end up with someone watching it and
mhm.
saying, I love this, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, what did I walk away with the feeling? And I think one of my favorite scenes, and then I'm gonna ask you what your favorite scene was, and it may surprise you, but my favorite scene was early on with the father and the son, and the son is like, I don't think she loves me. And the father doing his best to, like, bring his son out of that, to, dance, like, let's have a dance party. And I love that scene. That's one of my, I'm gonna say, my favorite scene of that script, because it was real. It was emotional, and
Yeah.
um it almost made me just a little bit, just tear up a little bit, but then you took me right back into action. So, but I love that. I love that scene. That was one of my favorite scenes of this script. What is your favorite scene of the script? And you
That's
can
a
have
really
multiple
good.
ones because you are the writer. So,
That's true. Yes. So there is a scene later on when she reunites with her ex right before they go into the abandoned missile silo to have the final showdown. And her ex has shown up
mhm,
unexpectedly, and
mhm.
he is, his character is interesting, and I got some notes about him in particular. A reader didn't really like him.
What
They
to me, he was the ultimate, to me, great father, and he
say
was
that
not gonna. I felt like he was not gonna let anyone get in the way of him saving his son and getting his son.
that and that was my intention. I think that some people, well, at least one reader, felt like he didn't come across as likable or as sympathetic. Which I think that I don't know if I agree with that, but I think I understand the note behind that
Mhm.
sentiment. And
Was
I,
it?
and I
Were they talking about not sympathetic to her plight?
I think that there is a sense of emotional distance there between the two of them, which is understandable because they're divorced, and he's kind of moved on in a way. He's
Mhm,
accepted, what, this relationship's over, and that's just how it has to be. And she has the same view, only she has no emotional sense of like attachment at all, whereas he is still, he still wants the best
a
for.
little lingering of hurt. He has a little
Yeah.
lingering of hurt
Hmm.
of them not being together,
Yeah.
being a family.
Yeah, so when they have this reunion at the end, there is a sense of him. I think he has this genuine moment of, you aren't a nice person. You haven't been nice to me, and it sucks how you've treated our kid
Mhm,
and how you've treated me. And I think that despite all that, you're an amazing person, and I still love you, despite all of the shit that you put us through.
mhm.
And I think that there's something interesting there because it is pretty human, right? We're all sort of like we're drawn to people for different reasons, and we can't necessarily stop being in love with or loving someone, even if they have decided that they're not in that relationship anymore and they don't want to do that anymore. But sometimes that feeling holds on to us, and when you have a kid, I think that it probably is even stronger. And so yeah, that moment for me, it was a way to have him sort of exercise some of his bad feelings, but also express that he still loved her and he still saw a pathway for them to be together. And yeah, and so I felt that was a genuine emotional moment. And even though it's sort of, his book ended by her like transforming to convince him that, hey, this is not your normal situation here.
Mhm.
Even for, an assassin, you've just found out that I'm an assassin,
Now
but even more so, by
you
the
can.
way, I'm also a werewolf. So hope that's okay with you.
Okay. I'm gonna switch hats here and go to topics here and go to your producing.
Yes.
Well, first of all, let me first ask you a question. What's the next steps for Alpha Lobo?
Next steps are try and get some interest in it.
Hmm.
I'm honestly I'm playing my cards a little close to my vest with it because I think it's a special script and I want to make sure that when I find the right person, it's ready to go. I have it out to a couple of people. I had a producer reach out and I pitched it and they liked it enough to take it, and they have it out to some other producers who have some money. So I really honestly I don't know what's going to happen with it, but I'm going to continue to try and find a good home for it because I do think that it's not a cheap movie to make, but I think it could make a really fun movie, and with the right people behind it, it would. I don't know. I think it would do pretty well, and the world needs to see a werewolf assassin in action.
They do. They gotta see this. This is so good. Let me ask this question. When did you know that you were a writer? Like what made you say,
Mm.
"Hey, this is a talent that I want to pursue." And then what made you pursue being a screenwriter? Was it a script you wrote first, or was it a short story you wrote first? Like,
That's a good question.
mhm,
I suppose I've written all my life, really,
mhm,
but I never really took it seriously
mhm,
until probably about 8 years ago.
mhm,
Um, I I think, and I was writing scripts at that point, but I wasn't serious and I wasn't disciplined about it. But
mhm,
I felt like I had an instinct for screenwriting, storytelling in the screenwriting format, especially. Like I and boy, I learned that actually I may have had an instinct, but I didn't have at all a sense of craft. I didn't have a sense of what it takes to be a storyteller inside of a Hollywood context because anyone can tell a story.
mhm,
I believe that anyone can tell a story. To tell a story that fits the mold of sort of a Hollywood production that is designed to go and play in theaters and make money or be shown on TV and make money.
mhm,
That's a very different prospect, different requirement entirely. You have to follow rules. You have to find your voice inside of a strict structure. And I think I only figured that out after I started disciplining myself into spending time just writing and learning about craft. And I think I found that because I was really just intrigued about why story worked, like what made story work, like why does this story work and why does this one not work? And so I just started to just delve into that, and I got some great notes from amazing writers and producers who do understand craft and story. And that kind of helped put me on the right path. And then the rest has really just been constant dedication to it. Daily writing, or if not daily writing, although I think I've done almost daily writing since, like about 80 years ago. But if it's not writing, it's reading about writing, it's learning about the craft, it's reading scripts,
mhm,
it's giving notes for
mhm,
other scripts to help other writers out because you learn a lot by reading other people's work and
mhm,
then dissecting, well, why did that work or why didn't it work for me? Like,
mhm.
so you can learn a lot just by just diving into the deep end, which is what I did. And but yeah, I don't know. I think the source was really just was always there, but it didn't kick into high gear until I just started spending more time with it. And yeah, it just has blossomed since.
Well, I don't want to, pigeonhole you into horror, but that seems like that is your kind of your lane right now, your genre.
For
Um,
sure.
what what about horror is brought your attention where you said, "Hey, this is where my niche is."
Well, I didn't grow up watching horror movies. In fact, I didn't grow up watching a lot of movies
That is
or
shocking to
TV.
me. That is so shocking to me because you're so good at writing it.
Thank you. I didn't have that background. I had a pretty strict upbringing. We didn't have a TV and we didn't watch a whole lot of movies. Most of the movies that I did watch were sort of black and white, detective movies, noir movies with Humphrey Bogart. And I didn't get into horror until I got to college. And when I got to college, it was like, whoa, there's so much cool stuff. So I mean, that was when I first watched things like Nightmare on Elm Street and Halloween and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and those really did kind of get me into that lane. And I feel like I sort of never looked back. I just felt like this was it. I loved the fear. I loved the tension and the dread. I loved the violence, and I don't know. I just there was something about it that just really got to me.
Good.
So yeah.
With horror being the genre, and that you really like, like working on and working on and writing. Are there any other genres that you're interested in just seeing and stretching your muscle in to see if it's something else that you might want to like fall into?
Well, I've written dramas.
Hmm.
In fact, some of the first scripts that I ever wrote were dramas.
Uh-huh.
And I love straight dramas, but honestly, I think from a business standpoint, they're harder to sell if you're a nobody like me. So I I I write them sporadically.
Okay.
But horror is just a more straightforward way forward, I think, in terms of career. So there is a bit of a pragmatic business, sort of thinking behind that.
Hmm.
That's not to say I'd love horror, so I would do it regardless. But it just happens to be a good fit for new writers who are trying to make it in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And so, but yes, I love dramas. I have toyed with comedy, but it's not my natural element. I think I'm good at comedy in small doses,
Hmm.
but to write a straight comedy is, I think it would be pretty tough. I'm just not naturally gifted in that way, and that's okay. Other people are fantastic at it, and so I'll leave it to them. Um, I am actually interested in action. I think action is an interesting genre because I feel like it's really hard to write an action movie that hasn't been done already. Horror is weird because I feel like the possibilities of finding something new are, I don't know, for some reason it feels like it's just there's so many more opportunities there. Action, uh, you know, I just think of an action concept. Nope, someone's already done it 15 times, 20 times, 100 times. So, but I think action could be a good one to explore.
I think that you would be great at it. After reading Alpha Lobo, I really believe that, action is something that you're so good at because this is so action packed. Um, it kind of
Yeah.
reminded me of Mission Impossible meets Underworld, maybe.
That's a
Maybe.
great comp. That's a
Um,
great comp. Oh my gosh. Holy cow. I've never even thought of that comp, but that really totally works because it was truly, I mean, it has the spy elements, but it's got the female werewolf, or and I mean, in
mhm.
this case it's werewolf, not a vampire, but yeah, it's the same concept. Yeah, it totally works. I love
Yeah.
that.
Um, so what tips of the trade would you give? And I hate using the word novice. So let's just clear that out. Let's clear this up really quick. To me, a novice is someone who has concepts of a plan. They haven't really written anything. If you have written something or you've filmed something, you directed something, you produced something, you are now that. You're no longer a novice. So, what tips of the trade would you give out for anyone newly coming in who's written their
Mm.
first horror script and they don't know the next steps?
The next steps are find people that you trust, that you know that you can learn from them, and reach out to them and see if they'll read your script and give you feedback.
And that is,
That I truly believe that's absolutely the first step, because and I think you have to be humble. Like,
yeah,
accept that 99.9% this is not going to get, the accolades that you think that it deserves. We
yeah,
all we all did it. We all.
prepare yourself that
Yes.
you're saying this is a masterpiece, that when you send it out for feedback, they may
Mhm.
not come back with the whole pat on the back and say
There.
you did a great job. They may say, hey, I love this piece about this and this
Yes.
section. I think you might need the scene or this character or this dialogue may need some work, and you have to be willing to take that in. You don't
Mhm.
have to accept it, you don't have to change everything, but take it in, sit with it, see if that really fits with the story you're trying to tell, and be okay with it. And that is great advice. Like, I promise you, when I don't know how many years I've been a script writer now. You said 8. I don't remember how many years I've been into this. Maybe 5 now. Of script writing, and I was horrible. Your script
we
was
we all had to go through that. We
was
all had to
bad, but
write bad
with
scripts.
help with, some good writers, like really some great writers who read my script and gave really critical
Mhm.
notes, it improved drastically. That it got it got optioned, that script did, but it was horrible at the beginning. And I, if anyone takes anything away from just this interview, this moment, is be open to feedback.
Yes.
Be
Be
open.
humble, be open, and really, take the feedback that you get, and try and incorporate it into your writing, because it's going to make it better.
It's gonna
You're
be,
going to learn a lot.
yeah.
And then the next script that you write, it's going to be a little bit better. And you'll get feedback on that, and you'll improve that. And then the next script you write is going to be, and it's, and then eventually you're going to start, seeing people talk about your stuff, and it's going to get shared around. And that's cool. That's really fun.
So now we're gonna switch to the producer hat that you're now wearing. Um, the Rickety Man. Did you produce that one, or did you just write on that one?
I just wrote that one, although the director and producers on that were kind enough to. I think they added me as a producer, but honestly, I did nothing other than guide them on the writing, and I helped out with some casting and wardrobe and other things, but truly, I did nothing on that project other than write it. So I can't say that I had a hand in the shaping of that, but I am proud of how it turned out. I think that the director and the producers behind it, they really did something special with that script. And
It did. Yeah,
yeah,
beautiful film. Can you tell the audience a little bit about The Rickety Man, what it's about?
sure. So this was a short film that I wrote and submitted to the oh gosh, I'm blanking on the competition that I submitted to. Oh
Okay.
geez, I just had a brain fart. I've been working all
That's
day,
all right. That's okay. I mean, you
but
submitted it to a competition.
submitted it to a competition, and it actually made finalists, which was huge for me. I'd never won anything before. And then it just sort of sat there. I didn't have any plans for it because it's a short film, and no one makes money on short films. So,
Mhm.
but then I got an email out of the blue from the director, and he was interested in shooting it. And I was like, okay, that's cool. And yeah, and so they put together a Kickstarter film Kickstarter for it, and they raised money to shoot it, and then they went and shot it, and they produced it and made it amazing. And yeah, but it started out as just an experiment. I wanted to see if I could write. And actually, now that I think about it, it's funny that you bring this up, but that's the first foray into horror that I ever took.
You're kidding me.
Not kidding.
Rickety Man?
Rickety Man. That was
Oh,
the first actual horror script, true horror script that I wrote. Not, yeah, up to that point, I'd never really done anything in that space. So, and it was, I truly wrote it as an experiment. Can I write horror? Like,
mm-hmm,
because my wife was always like, why are you always like, you love horror? Why don't you write a horror movie? Like,
mm-hmm,
I was like, yeah, why don't I? But I realized I didn't really know how to. I didn't know how to. I literally was like, how do I write a horror movie? So I was like, well, I got to learn this. So
mm-hmm.
yeah, it just was an experiment, and it turned into something huge. Um, I was just exploring a family dealing with grief, and a monster is sort of at the in the background of all of that, and it kind of haunts this family and sort of takes over and becomes something horrific in their lives. And yeah, and then yeah, it just kind of became what it is now in the final version of the film, which is it's up on YouTube. Yeah, it's something special actually.
It's very special. I love that film. Um, you also wrote and did you produce It Visits Me?
Yes.
Okay.
Uh, so It Visits Me is actually one of our more recent productions. So the director and producer of Rickety Man,
Mhm,
we ended up staying in touch. We found that we bonded,
mhm.
we creatively meshed, and we were really into horror. And so we've continued to work together to this day. And It Visits Me was a project that we were just trying to have fun with and experiment with. We had a location, and we had actors who we loved and we wanted to work with, because we had done a previous short film and we had worked with one of them and we really wanted to work with her. So we brought her back for It Visits Me. But yeah, it was a chance to kind of cut loose and experiment and have fun with sort of a different take on religious horror.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we shot it over 2 days and had a blast making it. It was great.
In 2 days?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so tell me what does a producer do?
A
Or what did
producer,
you do as a producer on It Visits Me?
well, with short films, it's tricky because I do think that this is true of features, but for sure on shorts, a producer makes sure that the whole thing doesn't fall apart. So a producer will do everything from picking up the food and the catering, to making sure that there's hot coffee on set, to making sure that everyone is being safe, that conditions on set are safe, that everyone's obeying sort of basic safety protocols, you know um, that we're doing what we need to be doing. We're staying on track with time. Everything is budgeted. You have a shot list. You have a certain amount of time to shoot it all in, and so the producer has to make sure that that continues and that you don't fall behind, or if you do, that you make up for it. And then you're also in charge of casting. You're putting together the casting, you're making shot lists, you're making sure that everyone's travel arrangements are taken care of, that everyone gets to set on time. I mean, it's literally everything. And then once the shoot is over, you're then in post, and so you're making sure that that your post people have what they need, that they are getting the resources, and that they're getting paid. And I mean, it's pulling it all together and making the final version, making it seem like it's effortless. Hopefully that came across.
Now, it did because, uh, this film and then Copy are
Mm-hmm.
amazing.
Oh, thank
The
you.
work in the filming, I don't know who you have directing, I don't know who you do have doing the lighting, I don't know, but they are, uh, the mesh of your writing and the directing and how you all set it up. Do you all do storyboards for each scene?
We do shot lists, which are shot. We actually know what the shot is, but then we have it. It's very simple boards, but yeah, we have it kind of mocked up so that we have a rough idea of what we want to shoot. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't change it on set, of course, but yeah, we have a general idea of what shots we need and how we want to shoot it. So, and we typically, we didn't on It Visits Me, but typically we'll get some rehearsal time so that we can, block things out ahead of time, and we know roughly how the actors need to move in a scene, how the camera's going to move, if lighting is going to be, an issue. We need to sort of factor in all these things. And so It Visits Me, we didn't really get that much time, but we got a little bit of it on copy. That was nice.
Talk to me about copy. Like, how did you come up with that concept? And and I also want to get the other question I didn't get a chance to ask you about being a producer. Was that a natural progression from being a screenwriter to going into being a producer? Is that something that you wanted, or did you just kind of fell into?
I think I fell into it more than wanted it. It became a matter of, do I want to make this more than I don't want to make this?
Hmm.
And if the question is yes, then you have to do what you got to do to make that happen.
Hmm.
And that just means putting on a producing hat.
Hmm.
So you kind of, for me, I became a producer out of excuse me, out of necessity, because I wanted to make things. I think that as screenwriters, it's very easy to say, well, I've written the script, my job is done.
Hmm.
And to a certain degree, that's true. But if you want to keep ownership of your stuff, if you want to continue to see your stuff uh, progress beyond the script stage, I think you have to step into that role, and say, yeah, I need to push this forward, and that means doing what a producer would do. So going out and finding the money for it,
Hmm.
finding the cast, doing what it takes to put the shoot together, planning it all, and yeah, and I think that that's a daunting task. It's not easy. It's not fun, and you don't get paid anything. Not for a short film. You don't get paid. I haven't gotten paid anything for
Hmm.
any of the work that I've done.
You just pour your
Uh,
heart, soul, and blood into it.
you
Yeah.
have to put everything that you have into it. But I think that for me, it just became a matter of, either I do this or my stuff doesn't get made, and no one will see it, no one will care, and that's just how the world is, and that's okay. That's how the world is. Like, no one owes you anything.
Hmm.
But if you at least want to have a shot at the brass ring, then go out and do it. Become a producer.
Definitely go out and do it, and definitely it's a calling card for future work.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully, but um it definitely is a to me is a calling card for future work, because anyone who and I do my best to link his work for you, for copy, for the Rickety Man, and for It Visits Me, at the bottom of the YouTube page for everyone to check out. I definitely feel everyone needs to check this out, because you need to see the talent, how talented Jeremiah is, and what type of, when he says he studies the craft, it comes through with his writing, and with when you see these three short films, you're gonna be like, okay, yeah, I see why he's so good at this, and why he,
Thank you.
the need for you to say, hey, I need to get this out here, because it's, you're you're very good, and you have aligned yourself with some great directors. And I'm not, familiar with everyone who is on set who does everything, but when they see these short films and see how well they're made, and how you're walking away going, "Oh, that was some scary stuff." I'm trying not to cuss on my own podcast. That was really scary. Um, I am so excited about what's next for you, and what's coming for you. And I feel like you're one of these people that, that Hollywood and the industry needs to look out for, like, because that's how good you are.
Well,
Um,
thank you. Thank you.
Now tell folks. Oh, two more questions about
Okay.
being a producer,
Yes.
because I want this to be kind of a learning, or as information,
Hmm.
informational for people who are trying to figure out this industry. When you're talking about money, when you're talking about casting, are there any tips that you can provide to the audience regarding those two things?
money is always going to be an issue, especially on short films, because you can't really do anything with them on a financial standpoint. You're not going to make money from a short film. Uh, so understand that whatever money you put into it, you're not getting back. So writing a script that you can execute on a very tight budget is important. So you have to sort of be thinking about what is the cheapest way to do this? What is the best way to do this that is cheap and feasible with my resources? And then you need to really be thinking about how to stretch all of your dollars as much as possible. Now, that might mean that might mean not paying everyone as much as you would want to pay them. A lot of times I've never made any money on anything that we've done, but we've tried to pay as many people as we can when we do the work that we do. Most of the stuff that we've done is very much on a budget, like sub $2,000, and in some cases sub like $800. At a certain point, you can't produce something that what I consider to be calling card worthy without spending some money. So, there's kind of a bit of a misinformation out there about, well, you got an iPhone, you can go shoot a short film. Well, yes, that's true. Technically, you can. Anyone can shoot a film with their phone, right? Is that film going to be worth watching? Is it going to have the production value and the sense of scale that will attract outside talent to look at you and say, yes, this is a person that I want to work with, or I want to send projects to? I think that in most cases, probably not. Simply the production value alone becomes a hurdle when you're working with zero budget, right? So you have to spend money. You have to put time and talent both in front of and behind the camera, and sometimes that takes money. One thing, we've always paid our performers. Every performer that you've seen, we have always paid them. Again, not much, but we paid them. And same with the crew. Our crew is always very small, but we try and pay them. Again, it's about making sure that they feel like they're getting what they need out of it. So along with the payment, we always want to make sure that people feel like the work is worth them using in their reels. And thankfully, we've worked with a DP who did It Visits Me and Copy, and he was wonderful to work with, and he offered to work with us for free because he was like, I'm looking for stuff to put on my reel, and I'm happy to make that trade. And so that was him offering it to us. So we got lucky because he's fantastic, and he's gonna be an amazing DP working on huge films one day. I just absolutely know it, and I hope that we'll get that privilege one day. But we've been lucky that we've been able to work with them. Same with our performers, and our crew have always been super generous. And so from a producing standpoint, find your people, treat them well, pay them as much as you can, but keep your budgets low and execute a feasible story. So that means making it short, making it sweet, making it punchy, and just go for as much gusto as you can in the shoot, and just make it look great, and then try and get people to show up and watch it.
Okay, and I love that because I think that, again, if you can get your stuff out there. And I think one of the biggest things here that you said that didn't say is the networking. You like networking within finding your tribe, but you have to find
Yes.
your tribe by networking. And you
Mm-hmm.
have to treat people well. And you have to do
Yes.
what you can for the people who you're working with. Even if that means sometimes you have to go home and you're not getting anything out of it, except that everyone is getting a chance to the actors is getting a chance to have something on their reel, and like you said, the DP
Mm-hmm.
gets a chance to have something on his reel, and you have something to put on your reel to say, this is
Yes.
what I wrote, but I also produced this. So it kind of works out in that way. And it just takes eyes on it. I feel it just takes eyes
Yeah.
on your work, and that's why I'm telling everybody, go and look at these films. Like, you need to see how incredibly well they were directed and produced and written, because they are, all three of them are
Oh, thank you.
fantastic films. So Jeremiah, one part of being on this podcast, you have to talk about how would you write it. So we talk about, IP
Yes.
that you would have liked to have worked on, and are had a chance to, get your hands on. And I think we talked about the TV series Evil and
Yes.
the horror feature called Tarot. So
Mm-hmm.
Evil, I loved Evil. I think they canceled it. I hate that. I think they canceled it, but
I think they canceled after 4 seasons. I've only seen the first 2 seasons,
mhm.
and I'm actually glad that we're going to have this conversation because I have strong feelings about Evil. I I love this show so much, but I'm also infuriated by it. There are parts of season 2 that absolutely drive me bonkers. Um, but I, at the end of the day, I love the characters. I
Mm.
love what they're doing. I think it's an X Files with a religious, a heavy religious bent. And they're really playing with some fun concepts. I think that they've embraced sort of the craziness of it, the ridiculousness of it. It is ridiculous, but they've embraced it, they've owned it, and they've accepted. Okay, we're gonna just do this now. Where can we go with this? And I think part of where, this whole how would you write it differently, I think in season 2, and I'm going to try and talk about this in a way that doesn't spoil anything. In season 2, I sort of felt like there was a loss of confidence in the characters, in the main characters especially.
Oh,
I I felt like the writers almost didn't know what they wanted to do with them. And so they were sort of like putting them into really bizarre situations
patience. Yeah. Hmm.
that required a lot of sort of finessing in the storytelling throughout the season to kind of justify the choices that were being made. And and I guess I just didn't buy all of it. I wanted to. I really did, and I still buy into the overall idea of the show. And the reason that I'm sort of excited to get into season 3 is I'm hoping that they rein some of that in
Hmm.
and that they pull it back to sort of what the core concept I think originally was. I think that they also deviated from season 1 to season 2. It became, and I think that could possibly be because it changed networks. It went from CBS to Paramount or Paramount to CBS. I can't remember which one. Um, that may have had something to do with it. I'm not sure. But yeah, I don't know. Does that make sense?
That makes sense to me. That makes sense to me.
Okay.
Let's talk about tarot. I
Yeah.
only saw the first 20 minutes of that on a plane. So, and as I was watching it,
Yeah. Okay. Come
I thought it was
on.
a great concept for just the first, maybe the 30 minutes. I don't know. I didn't get to the end of it. And it's only because the plane landed, we had to get off. It wasn't that didn't want to see the rest of it, but I was a little bit disappointed in how it was executed.
Yes. Yes.
Um,
So yeah, this tarot is, I think, one of those projects that, and I want to be really careful here. Um, First of all, these are just my subjective opinions.
this is
I
only objective opinions of writers who are looking at IP, and we're like, hey, that's great that IP is out there. It's
Yes.
fantastic. It's only our thoughts on how we would have done it. And it's nothing
Yes.
like, hey, go see Tarot and definitely watch Evil. Like, we're not saying don't watch these shows
Yes.
or this film. Is how would you write it is about being creative and
Yes.
how creatives sit, how when we're sitting and we're watching something, how our brains think as
Mm-hmm.
creatives when we're watching something. So this podcast is about that too. It's talking about the story within the story, but it's
Mm-hmm.
also talking about how we as creatives think when we're watching other IP. Is not to be negative,
Yeah.
is not to break anything, to dismiss the hard work that the actors, the producers, and the writers put into their craft.
That's
Is just
that's
how
right.
creatives think when they're watching something.
Yeah, and there's so many decisions that go into the making of a film or a TV show, and there are a lot of decision makers and stakeholders that have, different voices into that process. So when you're watching the end product, you have no idea why
Yeah,
was this choice made. Was it a writing choice? Was it a directing choice? Was it a producing choice? Was it a matter of money? Was it a matter of talent? Was it a matter of there's a dozen or more different reasons why something was done the way that it was. And a lot of times it can be because the cumulative effect of all these things turns a project into what it could be, into something that you didn't want to see. So as for me, tarot, I think that it had an excellent concept.
excellent.
um,
Yeah,
it was really, it takes the idea of a rules-based horror story. The rules in horror are really sort of important in establishing for an audience how things are going to work, right? You figure out what the rules are, you tell what the rules are, and then over the course of the story, you see how those rules play out and how they get, inflicted on the characters. And I think I would agree with you with Tarot. The execution ended up being different than what sort of I wanted it to be, or what I had built up in my mind, what I thought it could be. This very creepy a story based around this card game, and or it's not really a game, but the notion of cards, they kind of turn it into a little bit of a, it's kind of a party trick, right? They read the tarot cards during this little gathering that they have. um and I think at the end of the day, I think I wanted something a little more subtle, actually. There was a lot of really overt scary shots of monsters, and really quick shots of sort of scary faces, or things like that, and that there's nothing wrong with that, but I felt like it suffered as a result, because it kind of turned it into more of a spectacle versus something that I thought could have been very dread filled and tension filled. And so I think that that's how I would have done it differently. Is I would have tried to execute it much more subtly, and focused more on the building up of the tension. And
that is my thought too. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, and I think in doing that, I actually liked the characters. I thought that there was an interesting sort of dynamic between all these people in this friend group, and sort of how their lives were intertwined. I may have wanted to explore a little bit more of that, actually, because I thought that there was some interesting stuff that they didn't explore in the movie, which may have been in the script, may have gotten on the cutting room floor, who knows. But I would have liked to spend a little bit more time with the characters, and then, yeah, built up more of that suspense, because there was a really, I think it started out with a sense of ominousness to
hmm
it, and then once they sort of threw the first monster at you, it was kind of like, oh,
yeah.
okay,
The first monster,
well,
I felt like I was like, oh, they killed her already. I felt like it should have been a build up to that kill. Like we should
yeah,
be sitting there
yeah,
going, oh, well, nothing happened, and then it should have been a shock. Oh, that
yes,
happened, and it's like they immediate. The first kill was so immediate, and it wasn't a build up to that first kill.
that's right.
But that, like I said, I only saw up to the first kill, and I was just like, then we had to get off the plane. And that was my first thought. It's like they did that so fast, where I felt like they should have paced that out
Yeah,
just a little
yeah.
bit, pace it out a little
And and who knows, that may have been a decision based on
time.
the budget or time, or just some producer may have just been like, it feels better this way. And you know what? Some people really like that, and there's nothing wrong with that. And that's the great thing about this industry, actually, is that you can find half a dozen opinions on any given, IP or project out there, and everyone's going to have a different take on it. But yeah, it's fun to sort of game out, like, what would you do differently about this? What would how would you? And going back to Evil, I mean, just being able to sit in that room would be an amazing experience. I
Oh
would
my
love
God, yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. I would have loved to be in the writer's room for Evil. Just to even thought just to throw out ideas of what the the next step would have been wonderful to do for Evil. I love that show.
Yeah,
Um,
it's wonderful.
so before we go,
Yes.
um, tell folks where they can find you. Or oh, you know what? What's next? What's up next for you?
What's next? A lot of writing, a lot of writing. And I'm in development on two projects right now. I can't talk about them right now,
Okay. I
unfortunately.
understand. I understand.
I hopefully will be able to talk about them sooner rather than later. But yeah, suffice to say, at the moment, in development on a couple of features, and yeah, things are happening behind the scenes. So
Well, come back to, how would you write it? When you're ready to talk about them and promote them, I would love to have you back to,
I would love to be back. That would be a lot of fun to talk more shop with you.
now, where can people find you?
Well, I am less active on Twitter these days, probably for reasons that you might expect. I am still on there. I largely will post very early in the morning. I write under the hashtag 5 a.m. Writers Club.
Mhm.
So if you're into masochistic suffering, getting up early at the crack of dawn and writing for a couple of hours with me and a bunch of other crazy people, please feel free to join us. I'm also on Blue Sky. I have a different handle on Blue Sky. So my handle on Twitter is at FringeBlog, FringeBlog. Don't ask. My handle on Blue Sky is minorfracas. So you can find me there. But I'm usually posting under the 5 a.m. Writers Club hashtag there as well. So
Okay, so I was gonna ask you, are you
um,
doing the five AM one on Blue Sky? Okay.
yeah, I've been cross posting there, and then I will occasionally post like movie threads, threads about just I like to dissect movies and I talk about different aspects of movies. So you'll probably see me posting about various movies that I've watched, and some esoteric connection with another movie out there or a subject matter that I'm curious about. So yeah, check it out.
Check it out, everyone. Like, is he's so very helpful with the 5 a.m. Writers Club. Now, I have tried. I have I have been up a
It's
couple
not
times
easy.
at 5 a.m. writing with him. And you do get a lot done in the morning with
You do.
writing. So I have to say that if you're into that, if you're wanting not to feel so alone with writing and being creative, because writing is a lonely kind of
Can be.
thing to do. Definitely, join the 5 a.m. Writers Club with Jeremiah.
Yeah.
He's very
Look
encouraging.
me up. Look me up and reply to a tweet because I'm always tweeting very early and I'll always connect with you. So hit me up.
Yes. With that being said, thank you so much, Jeremiah, for
Thank you.
joining me today and talking about your projects and giving some tips of the trade. I appreciate you so very much.
It
Um,
has been an absolute pleasure. I always love talking to you, Tay. It's wonderful to just get to cut loose for a little while and talk about my favorite thing, which is writing. I will never get tired of talking about it. But I absolutely adore being on here, and I want to come back. So thank you
yes,
so
please.
much for having me.
I would love to talk about what you have in the works. I already know it's gonna be something like fantastic. Again, folks, I'm gonna drop the links at the bottom for the YouTube, and I need you all to go see what I'm talking about, so you will believe me when I say that he is so awesome and you gotta see this. You gotta see this. He is the next and up and coming. I feel, and he should be the next upcoming person that you need to have on his name in your mind of what's going to be hot, like because he is so good at what.
Thank you. Thank you. You're too kind.
So I just want to tell my audience, thank you for joining us today, and for this podcast called "How Would You Write It?" And if no one has said to you today about your creativity, I'm going to say it. I believe in you. I know you can do this. The world is crazy right now, and I know the industry is crazy right now, but you were built for this. You have this gift, so use it. Don't let anyone
Ah,
get in your way, and don't you get in your way. So,
beautiful.
thank you, everyone, and have a great day. And we'll see you next time on How Would You Write It?